Hi, I'm Catherine Morgan from Point A to Point B Transitions. I am a career transition expert and a business consultant to consultants, and I'm here with my colleague, Tony Catalano.
I'm Tony Catalano. I'm with CATALANO Technology Consulting, and I'm a business strategist and IT consultant.
And I'm Susan Tyson. I'm a marketing consultant, specializing with B2B marketing, operating as outsourced marketing director.
Fantastic. Some background, I've known Susan for a long time, and I wanted to bring her on today, one, because she's written a fantastic, very short and very actionable book on what pretty much every small to mid-sized business owner needs to read about marketing, even if you know nothing about marketing, and why Tony and I love this book. And we're also going to dive into a couple questions that are in the ethos, because I feel that my superpower for this year is poking sacred cows. So in addition to talking about Susan's great book, we are going to poke some sacred cows.
Awesome. Awesome.
So Susan, tell us about your book and what inspired you to write it.
I started writing this back in the fall. Had a kind of a transition with some clients, and in just kind of thinking what my next steps needed to be. Honestly, this book kind of fell out of it. It started as a PowerPoint presentation I used to use with new clients to kind of, because I like to take them through, you know, the old presentation technique, tell them what you're going to tell them, and then tell them what you just said. That was my PowerPoint. And then, so this PowerPoint just is kind of morphed into this book. And my goal always was to get rid of all the mystery and the blah blah that is so often presented from marketing people. You know, the jazz hands that people use when they try and discuss marketing. So I did try to just winnow it down to the very basic, simple, most direct, most important things that business owners needed to know.
It was surgically edited, and I give you huge props for that. Given my work with Carol Roth, a small business expert and media personality for 10 years, I've seen a lot of marketing stuff, and a lot of it is just like, oh, kill me now. So, but I'd love to have Tony's perspective, because he's built a real company with real employees and revenue in the millions. So what do you think as somebody who's needed this type of work?
So yeah, I mean, when I went through the book, that's really the direction that I took, was how could I have benefited from this when I was going through this cycle? And there were so many answered questions that I wish I'd had this material at that time. But a lot of those things that are things like, you know, a lot of small business owners build their business by word of mouth, and they believe that word of mouth is all they need. And I found that that couldn't be farther from the truth. Susan, can you talk a little bit to the point of how marketing really just enhances that word of mouth and brings in more business, as opposed to just focusing on the people who tell the people who tell the people?
Yeah, I think that if for business owners that do, as you say, rely on word of mouth, they're talking to that self-selected small group that are predefined because they're people they know. And the opportunity to really expand your marketing reach and your message comes from talking to people you don't know. So often I find business owners feel like they know it all. They know everything. They've done everything. We tried that. It doesn't work. But pulling it out and testing or trying with, again, with people they don't know, expanding the audience. And gosh, even just asking current customers what they know about the business. I intentionally start the book with talking about research, and research is can be very, very simple. Research used to scare me. I used to work in big agencies where it was a whole big department. But research can be very simple. It can be telephone calls with a dozen clients, customers, maybe a couple of previous customers, maybe some prospects. Doesn't need to be a lot of questions. Tell me about the company. What do you know about the company? What do they do well? What do they not do well? And it's amazing the kinds of things that you can learn, stuff way beyond what that business owner thinks, because he continues to work in his own little bubble.
Yeah, right.
That's fantastic. I will add, from the very small business side, the content for your copy, for your email outreach, for your social media, for your newsletter, often is generated from what's in your inbox, using what clients have said, what they've thanked you for, what they didn't like, maybe generates your FAQs. Using the language that clients actually use to describe your business can boost your results, because clients feel like they know you, especially in a very high touch coachy business like I have. Some of my websites, people actually got a little squishy feeling. They're like, oh my God, this woman's inside my head. And that's when you know you've nailed your marketing. When people say, you're inside my head, how do you know that I'm struggling with this?
Well, and even, Catherine, using their own words, gosh, they're going to think you're brilliant, because you're only mirroring what's in their head. Boy, you are brilliant. I've said that many times.
I'm sure we've discussed it many times. How does that work for a bigger business, Tony? Is that important even in consulting or IT?
I've had the opportunity to actually ask clients to speaking engagements with me. Some are open to that, some aren't. My previous business, we did a lot of interface with HR groups, and the HR folks were very happy to be able to explain about how their company was doing things. And so for me, it was a great marketing opportunity, because I would introduce them and let them tell everyone how great our company was. And it really worked. We generated a lot of leads that turned into business. So,
oh man,
testimonials are so strong. Just so very strong. And yet business owners are very shy about asking for them.
Yeah.
I've started pushing people, or encouraging, you know how encouraging I can be, Susan, to
yes.
just make it as part of their sales process. So when you finish an engagement with a client and they're gushing about the great results you got them, just get in the habit of asking, is there somebody else, who's struggling with this issue? Is there somebody that, might benefit from a conversation with me? And you'd be surprised how people are like, oh, you know what, now that I mention it, or now that I'm thinking about it, so-and-so, my cousin, my sister-in-law, my wife, whatever, I get a lot of and it's not pushy. It doesn't feel icky if you just get in the habit of doing it. And sometimes people are like, no, I'll think about it. I've had people just up and say, please let me write you a testimonial. And your default answer when people say that to you should be yes.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Can you talk about the value of social proof, though? I'm sure you've had to talk with clients about how important it is what other people say about you versus what you say about you.
In my experience, you can, as a business owner, you can tell a prospect all you want till you're blue in the face. They're not going to believe you as much as they will the guy that down the street who's in a similar business who's worked with you. It's just, yeah, it's like, again, the power of the referral, the power of the outside endorsement is so strong, that, and on top of it, a business owner telling a prospect what they want to tell the prospect is not as effective as answering a prospect's questions, and telling the prospect what they want to hear. So it's really, and that's part of what I try and talk about in the book, is kind of turning that prism, so that you're kind of walking away from just saying what you think they need to say, and instead focus more on what it is that they want to hear.
Oh, interesting. Okay. Tony?
Do you see any role in things like surveying clients, things like Net Promoter Score, simple 2-question? I found some value in that, you get a person, because it's 2 questions, people generally are quick to answer.
Mhm.
But some of the question, the 2 questions are essentially, where do you rate us 1 to 10? And then tell us why you rated us that. And some of those responses to that second question can become those marketing tools. And they can, besides helping you find where you might have issues, they can become some of those promotional.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. That would just be the one instance where I would caution against not having a big enough universe that you're talking to. That you don't want to get 3 answers like that and use that as your guidepost.
Right. Right.
You want to start to see patterns or consistency, something like that.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
No,
But
I agree.
NPS is a good tool.
Our tendency would be to poll multiple people in an organization, so we would be able to gather metrics by organization and then globally. So, but I agree. There's a lot of 1-star, 5-star ratings out there when you go on Amazon, and then you see how many people have rated it, and it's 1.
Yeah,
so that
And it was their brother-in-law.
was very.
Yeah. And the other thing, Tony, the other important thing when you're looking at those kinds of comments, as you said, you're talking to people from different departments within an organization. Well, the CFO is going to have a completely different perspective than the CMO, than the operations guy, than the head of manufacturing. And so you need to look at those responses, at really keeping that in mind, because the perspective they have is so very, very different. It's for that reason too, that when you're looking at building a target audience for your product, I don't know any product that has only one target audience description.
Right.
A product is purchased by lots of different departments to solve different needs.
Exactly.
I want to poke sacred cows because that's what I do. I want to poke at the perception that marketing is pretty and irrelevant and doesn't generate revenue, and it's sales that brings in the revenue. I'd love your perspective, and then I'd love Tony's.
Yeah, this is, yeah. Catherine and I have had some fun conversations about this. The ever present conflict between sales and marketing. Marketing, if they're really doing their job, is there to help the sales team. They're there to provide content and talk points. The sales team can conversely help the marketing team with giving feedback, although the marketing team would be best off going out into the market itself and learning more. But both are coming from their own point of view, but a salesperson, the marketing person can provide, I think, a much broader perspective and a kind of a bigger picture for a salesperson in almost any instance. I'm trying to think of an instance when that wouldn't be true. I've worked in organizations where the sales team was king and queen. It does make it tougher as a marketing person to be able to get them new ideas or to look at different target audiences. So it really, it needs to be the two entities working hand in hand. It's kind of like water and oil, but I just, in my heart, I believe it really can work.
Tony, you just had an experience at one of your clients with a little sales and marketing.
Well, yeah, they were actually kind of strange in that they believed that it was the same thing, that the same skill set was involved in marketing as it was in sales. And I fought that as much as I could, seeing as they were a client. But I've always described it as the difference between getting you to want to buy something and then getting you to buy it. And it's two different skill sets to me. One is to build up your knowledge to the point where you understand the value of a product or a service. And the other one is, handing that pen across the desk and saying, let's just do this. And then we'll go to lunch. And it's two different personalities and two different abilities. And if you don't see that, it can cause problems. As the leader in my organization, I would always have group meetings with both sales and marketing. And then I had individual meetings where I would say, you understand what they're saying, right?
They need a translation utility between them. You are acting as the translation utility.
Yeah.
But Tony, you just blew some salespeople's heads when you said, just give them the pen and have them sign. Because there's to defend a salesperson, there's so much more in the sale than that. Now, the key would be getting the marketing team and the sales team to be saying the same things. Ideally, the marketing team is doing the bigger messages to start to bring somebody down the purchase funnel. And then the sales person is following up and saying the same things. The challenge is when the salesperson wants to get creative and do their own thing, their own way of providing features and benefits.
Oh my God. This is something I have personally experienced both on the sales side and the marketing side, is when someone goes rogue, doesn't like the party line of the company, doesn't use the colors, doesn't use the PowerPoint templates, doesn't do, in which one dilutes the effectiveness of the branding in the marketplace at large and potentially puts the company at reputation risk.
And confuses the customer completely, because then with that rogue message, they really won't know. They'll be confused.
Yeah, then they'll go to the website and nothing will look and feel like what they've been presented, and they'll be like, huh?
And then that just presents one more reason why they won't buy.
And they won't tell you that. You won't know that's the reason they didn't go to the end, right, Tony?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. Nobody wants to tell you why they didn't buy something. And I want to take a half step back. I wasn't minimizing the salesperson's role. To me, it's a different skill set of the ask. And that's what I guess I meant by saying putting the pen in their hand and going for that ask to sell. Whereas a marketer in general, certainly from my perspective, was someone who could tell you about the product, could tell you what we can do, could tell you what we can't do, but doesn't necessarily have that skill set to ask
for the order.
Yeah.
It's utterly different skills. Strategy, implementation, metrics, content versus relationship building, relationship management, coaxing a client along the sales journey. Utterly different skills. And most people don't overlap and don't want to do the other person's job. Like, that's so funny that, you know, your client sort of had that confused. It's like when you're reading job descriptions and you're like, yeah, no person has all of those skills. Like, those are two different humans, and you're looking for one person, and it does not exist.
And years ago, I heard the definition of the difference between a marketer and a salesperson, and a marketer will hear no, and that'll light the light bulb and make them curious, want to go and find out why not. A salesperson will say no, and they'll and oftentimes just say okay and move on to the next one. It's as you say, Tony, two different mindsets, two different ways of approaching it.
Mm-hmm.
So once again, let me take us to the less easy questions of, you know, it's pretty obvious that we have a few gray hairs among us. I have a lot, and both of us, all three of us, are, you know, in the second half of our career. I'll be generous. I want to talk about this ridiculousness of aging and working and setting some arbitrary end date or expiration date to when we're in corporate or doing work. I mean, I'll throw myself under the bus and say, I love what I do. I have zero intention of stopping working and learning and growing, because it's a recipe for clinical depression and an autoimmune disease for me. Like, and if it's not, you know, if someone's jam is to, you know, they hated what they were doing, they want to stop and do something else, or, you know, be a grandparent, or, you know, do whatever, that's fine. But for me, this is so ridiculous. And the people who come into my practice, they're just kind of hitting the gas. For whatever reason, they're really solid in their skills. Their kids are out of the house. They've had some kind of a life reshift. They've downsized their overhead. They're like ready to go and do something of interest to them. Take the money part out of it, but like be working and interesting. How are you guys feeling about that? How are you approaching it?
There's big value, of course, to the institutional knowledge that an experienced worker can bring. Huge value. It's the reflective learning skills. We keeping an open mind, but at the same time saying, we used to do it this way. What if we did it this way plus two? Did it slightly differently? Mm-hmm. I think that at the same time, I think that's part of the reason why those young folks are fearful of hiring somebody with a little gray, is if the person with the little gray is perhaps too stubborn or wants to stay back and this is the way that we used to do it kind of thinking. But with a solid open mind and flexibility, there's so much that an organization can benefit from with that hiring on that institutional knowledge.
Beautiful. Tony?
Yeah, I'm in a technology business, and so I've been I'm used to and very comfortable with continuous learning, and the thought of stopping that for any reason is beyond me. I love to learn. I love to put new technologies and new knowledge to use and to service the business. I don't understand it. I don't understand how somebody can say, I just want to be, golf 3 times a week. And I love to golf, but not in exchange for learning new things and teaching and passing it along. You know, I've had a lot of mentors in my career, and I love that role as a mentor to be able to pass that knowledge that I've gained. And some of that gets lost as time goes on because those lessons that are learned with older technologies are still valid lessons, but they're just not taught anymore because that technology is expired. and they're all valid valid experiences and knowledge that I think is valuable to everybody from startup, from new hires to 10, 15 years worth of experience.
Yeah, totally. And the idea that an employer is more willing to hire someone perhaps without that experience and pay for the learning curve. It just to me is a waste of money to not look at people that have already got that experience. There's not a ramp up time. They can likely adjust and adapt much more quickly.
I'd like to. Oh, sorry.
I saw a quote somewhere that said, if you think hiring experience is expensive, wait till you see the cost of hiring inexperience.
Oh, totally. Totally.
Yeah.
Totally. Very expensive. And yeah, too bad that you're not bringing your best friend on, but yeah, hiring that experience can be very, very valuable.
Mm-hmm.
I want to tag on to that, Susan, because I know some of the impetus for the book and what you're offering currently is a fractional CMO type of role where a company could potentially get your deep knowledge, expertise, perspective, vision, and not have to take on full-time headcount, just get the amount of time that either they can afford or they actually need. Can you talk about how that would work?
Sure. I think with my, I've found with my experience that, again, I can just ramp up much more quickly with a company. I can listen to what the problems and the challenges are. Again, using reflective learning skills, I can probably get to the heart of the issue a little more quickly. With my experience, I'm much more agile. It can work very quickly, can adapt much more quickly as well. And honestly, most companies, especially small companies, they don't need somebody full-time marketing. They just don't. And in fact, some of the smallest companies, it's Barb is doing the marketing, but she's also keeping the books. It isn't necessarily something that you need full time. Now, I've also found my clients get a bargain because I like all of my clients and I like their products and I'm interested in what they're doing. And so it's something like my brain doesn't shut off. So
we're raising our hand. Tony and I can't stop it either.
2 a.m. insomnia hour. I'm writing copy in my head. Bonus time, extra bargain. But it's also for me working with a couple of different clients, different industries. Is just a lot more interesting.
Oh, heck yeah.
I'd stay with one client all the time. I couldn't do a full-time 40 hours with one client. It would just be too boring. I'd be making work in order to fill the 40 hours.
Mm-hmm.
Nice. And I love that, one of the benefits of hiring someone like you who's done a lot of job functions throughout your career is you can not only dive in, talk to senior management, set the strategy, set the plan, do some of the execution, but also hire and manage some cheaper resources below you to do the lather, rinse, repeat stuff that isn't a good use of your time, correct?
Totally. And again, that's the benefit in being able to parse it out like that. Because you don't need to have your best marketing intelligence, your best resources working on, building emails.
No, but you also can't leave junior resource to drown without any guidance or support or oversight. That's not fair to them. They don't have the experience to maybe self-manage something that they've only done a little bit of. Like, that's not a fair expectation from an employer.
That's completely true. And it just, that's where I can lend my strategy experience and some of the training and mentoring that I've done is working with the more junior.
Teams.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely.
Tony, anything of your questions that we missed?
There's a million. Read the book. There's a million. Read the book. They're answered in there. I can only tell you that I sat down to read it. I was captivated. There were so many questions that so many answers that I wished I'd had this when I was going through the thick of it. So kudos. Great reading.
Awesome. That's great to hear. Thank you. I'm honored. That's
Susan, thank you so much for joining us on short notice. You're amazing, and wishing you much success and happiness in 2021.
Awesome. And anybody who wants to get a copy of the book, can I pitch that?
Oh, please.
You can contact me and go to my website, sgtyson.com, or you can send me an email, susan@sgtyson.com, and I'd be happy to send the book to you.
Beautiful. Thank you so much, Susan. Thank you, Tony.
Okay. Thank you.